The command center buzzed with faint hums of advanced technology, illuminated by the steady pulse of holographic displays. Darkened windows revealed the flicker of distant stars, but inside, the weight of the recent battle hung heavy in the air. Officers moved in and out, exchanging grim glances as they updated consoles. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the scent of charged plasma still clung to the air, a haunting reminder of what had transpired just hours ago. At the center of the room stood a circular table, around which the high command of the Alliance was gathering. The holographic projection of the recent battlefield still glowed, casting long shadows across the faces of those present. Silence settled over the room as Sonara, a tall figure with dark, calculating eyes, took her place. Opposite her, the human known only as the Reaper leaned forward, his demeanor unreadable, eyes fixed on the shifting images. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Sonara finally broke the silence, her voice calm but with an undercurrent of frustration. We accounted for every known strategy, every possibility, yet here we are. Humans, always so unpredictable. The Reaper smirked slightly but said nothing, his gaze unwavering. Krillvac, a bulky warrior with a hardened exterior, shifted uncomfortably. Their tactics were unconventional. Ambushes, feints, guerrilla warfare, they were everywhere and nowhere. It's as if they were one step ahead the entire time. The Reaper finally spoke, his voice deep and steady. You underestimated them. It's not just their tactics, it's their adaptability. They thrive on chaos. What you see as unpredictability, they see as opportunity. Sonara's eyes narrowed as she turned to the Reaper. I'm well aware of their capacity for innovation, but what concerns me is the recklessness. A lack of discipline can just as easily lead to failure. The Reaper's expression hardened. Reckless to you, maybe. To us, it's survival. Your enemies didn't expect humans to fight with such intensity, and that's why you won today. Sonara straightened, arms crossed, her gaze cool. Perhaps. But this can't be the foundation of our strategy moving forward. There must be a way to control this chaos. The hologram flickered, displaying the points of engagement. Sonara gestured to the map. We need to adjust. This level of unpredictability is a double-edged sword. It worked in this instance, but we need strategies that aren't so reliant on impulse. Krillvac leaned forward, his brow furrowed. We should integrate their tactics but refine them. The unpredictability worked in the chaos of the battlefield, but in prolonged engagements, it could leave us vulnerable. Reaper shook his head, his voice a low rumble. You're missing the point. You can't refine chaos. You harness it, let it flow. The more your enemy thinks they understand you, the more they'll underestimate you. That's how humans win. Sonara glanced toward him, her gaze sharp but thoughtful. That's not how the Alliance operates. We've built our entire structure on coordination and discipline. To throw that out would be madness. The Reaper smiled slightly. Then don't. But if you're going to fight like us, you need to be willing to embrace the unknown. Krillvac nodded in agreement, his voice gruff. They struck hard because we didn't see it coming. If we can strike that fast, but with coordination, we'll be unstoppable. The room fell silent as Sonara considered the words, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of the table. Adapting is key, she said finally. But this isn't about becoming human. We must integrate the chaos without losing what makes the Alliance strong. The Reaper's gaze shifted to the hologram again, his voice growing quieter, more intense. You won today because you let humans do what they do best, survive at any cost. If you want to keep winning, that unpredictability needs to be part of your core strategy, not just a tool you pull out when things go wrong. Sonara studied him, the weight of her command heavy on her shoulders. She knew he was right, but that didn't mean she had to like it. We'll adapt. But we'll do it our way. The Reaper leaned back, his expression unreadable. Do it however you want. Just know, there's a reason humans are still standing after centuries of war. It's not discipline. It's the ability to adapt when things go south. You're at war, Sonara. Things will always go south. Krillvac shifted uncomfortably again, sensing the tension between them. Perhaps a balance. We maintain our discipline but allow for flexibility in the field. Let the humans operate as they have, but with clearer oversight. Sinara nodded slowly, her sharp mind processing the possibilities. Yes, a middle ground. We can't lose sight of what keeps the Alliance together, but we can't ignore what made the humans successful. We need to evolve, without losing ourselves in the process. The hologram flickered once more, showing the damage inflicted on the enemy. The proof of humanity's chaotic approach was evident, and despite her misgivings, Sinara couldn't deny its effectiveness. She turned to the Reaper, her voice firm but with a hint of acknowledgement. We'll continue incorporating your tactics. But rest assured, we won't become reliant on chaos. Order will prevail. The Reaper's smirk returned, just barely. I wouldn't expect anything less. As the meeting wound to a close, the urgency in the room remained palpable. They had won, but the cost had been great, and Sinara knew that more challenges lay ahead. The humans had proven their worth, but their unpredictability still left her uneasy. She cast one final glance at the Reaper, her thoughts lingering on his words. Victory had come, but it had revealed much about the future of this alliance: chaos, order, and the delicate balance between them. The squad's quarters were small but efficient, a reflection of their disciplined lives. The hum of machinery buzzed softly in the background as the Reaper's team moved with practiced precision, each member busy preparing for the mission ahead. The armor plating clicked into place with the familiar sound of metal on metal, and weapons were inspected with meticulous care. Despite the urgency of their task, there was no sign of haste. Every movement was deliberate, calculated. Talia, the squad's medic, sat on the edge of her bunk, polishing her equipment. Her face was calm, focused, but there was a gleam of anticipation in her eyes. Across from her, Nix, their tech specialist, was running diagnostics on the squad's drone, his fingers flying across the interface with ease. A few feet away, Hark adjusted his heavy weapon, a grin pulling at his lips as he tested its weight. The Reaper watched silently from the doorway, his presence a constant reminder of the gravity of what lay ahead. Despite the brief moments of downtime, every soldier was acutely aware of the looming mission. Yet this was their rhythm: prepare, focus, execute. There was no wasted effort, no unnecessary conversation. Bet the Dominion didn't see that one coming, Hark quipped, breaking the silence as he lifted his weapon with a practiced ease. Thought they could push us around, but we showed them, didn't we? Talia smirked without looking up. You're getting cocky, Hark. Keep that up, and they'll make an example out of you next time. Let 'em try, Hark replied, grinning wider. Just means I get to send a few more of them back in pieces. Nick shook his head, still focused on his drone. If they're smart, they'll know better than to try again. But something tells me we won't be that lucky. Talia chuckled softly. Lucky? Since when do we rely on luck? We're still here because we don't leave anything to chance. The Reaper finally stepped forward, his voice cutting through the banter like a blade. Luck has nothing to do with it. It's preparation every time. The squad turned their attention to him, their demeanor shifting ever so slightly. Even in moments of levity, they never lost sight of who was leading them. The Reaper's reputation preceded him, not just among his own men, but across the entire alliance. He was the embodiment of their relentless drive, their will to survive no matter the odds. So, what's the next target, boss? Hark asked, shouldering his weapon. The Reaper moved to the center of the room, activating the holo display that projected a map of the upcoming operation. The target, a key Dominion outpost, shimmered in blue light. We're hitting a logistics hub. Dominion forces are using it to resupply their fleet. If we take it out, we cripple their supply chain and buy the Alliance time to regroup. Nix leaned in, scanning the map. What kind of resistance are we looking at? Expect heavy defenses, the Reaper replied. Turrets, ground troops, automated drones. They know the importance of this site. But that's not our biggest concern. They've been running counter-surveillance, so they'll be expecting something. We'll need to move fast, hit hard, and be gone before they can react. Talia frowned slightly. What about extraction? Already arranged, the Reaper said. The Alliance is providing air support for our exfil. But once we're in, we'll be on our own. No backup. The squad absorbed the information in silence, their expressions grim but determined. This wasn't new to them. Every mission came with its risks, and they had long since learned to face them head-on. But there was always a weight to the Reaper's words, a reminder that failure wasn't an option. Hark broke the silence first, grinning despite the tension. Sounds like just another day in the office. Take out the bad guys, blow some stuff up, come home in time for dinner. Talia shook her head but smiled. If only it were that simple. The Reaper's gaze swept over his team, his voice low and steady. It is that simple. We go in, we complete the objective, we get out. No distractions. No hesitation. Nix tapped a few more buttons on his display, nodding. Drones are ready. We'll have eyes in the sky the moment we hit the ground. The Reaper nodded. Good. Everyone knows their roles. Stick to the plan, and we'll make it out in one piece. There was a brief pause as the squad made their final checks. Weapons were secured, gear double-checked, and armor sealed tight. Each member moved with the fluidity of soldiers who had fought side by side for years, their trust in one another unspoken but absolute. As the minutes ticked down, the mood in the room shifted again. Calm focus settled over them, the camaraderie of moments before replaced by the sharp clarity of soldiers readying for war. This was their element. The battlefield was where they belonged. Talia secured her medkit and stood, her expression set. Let's get this done. Hart gave his weapon one last satisfied pat, grinning at the others. You heard her. Time to punch out early. Nix merely nodded, his fingers still tapping at his device as the drone whirred quietly to life. The Reaper, already at the door, glanced back at his squad one final time. We move in 5. Stay sharp. Without another word, the squad filed out, their footsteps synchronized, their minds already locked onto the mission ahead. They weren't just prepared, they were ready. Sinara stood by the window of the dimly lit chamber, her eyes fixed on the sprawling starfield beyond. The distant glow of galaxies offered little comfort as her mind churned over the recent events. Krillvac approached silently, his heavy footsteps barely breaking the tension hanging in the air. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them wasn't unfamiliar. Both warriors knew that words often failed to capture the gravity of what they faced. They fight like nothing I've ever seen, Krillvac finally said, his voice a low rumble. It's not strategy, it's chaos. And they win with it. Sinara's gaze remained fixed on the stars, her expression hard to read. They don't just win, Krillvac. They thrive in the chaos. It's unsettling. Krillvac grunted, crossing his arms. It goes against everything we've built. Our structure, our order, all of it risks collapse if we follow their example. Sinara turned to face him, her eyes sharp. We won't follow their example. But we can't ignore what they've accomplished. They've thrown the Dominion off balance in ways we couldn't. He shook his head, clearly uneasy. That's what troubles me. We didn't expect to rely on them this much. And now? We're adapting to their tactics, not the other way around. It's as if they're forcing our hand. Sinara's brow furrowed slightly, a rare display of discomfort. The Alliance was built on precision. Every move calculated. Humans, they don't calculate. They react. If we allow too much of their influence, we risk losing control over the very war we're trying to win. Krillvac's eyes narrowed, his distrust evident. They may have helped us in this battle, but relying on humans in the long term? It feels like a dangerous gamble. If they keep acting like this, it's only a matter of time before they overstep. Sinara's voice softened, though her gaze remained sharp. The key is ensuring they don't overstep. We can use their unpredictability to our advantage, but we must be the ones directing it. Letting them dictate the terms would be the real danger. Krillvac paced, clearly frustrated. But how long can we control them? Every victory they claim increases their influence within the Alliance. I hear it already, other commanders praising them, calling them essential. How much longer before they begin to think they're the ones in charge? Sinara's jaw tightened. That's why we need to remain vigilant. We integrate their tactics, but we never allow them full autonomy. The humans have proven they're valuable, yes, but they are still an unpredictable ally. One we must watch carefully. Krilvac growled in frustration, his fists clenched. It's not just about watching them. The other species in the Alliance, they're starting to question our leadership. They see the humans' victories and wonder why we couldn't achieve the same. They'll start to lose faith in our command. Sonara's gaze darkened. That's where the true danger lies. The balance of power within the Alliance is shifting, and not in our favor. We must remind them all who commands this war. The room fell silent again, the weight of the conversation settling over them like a heavy shroud. Sonara knew that Krilvac's concerns were valid. The humans had turned the tide in recent battles, but their presence was causing ripples that threatened the unity of the Alliance. Other alien officers had already begun murmuring in the council chambers, questioning whether the rigid, disciplined strategies of the past were still effective in a war where chaos seemed to reign. Sonara had overheard those murmurs. She knew that beneath the surface, there was a growing divide. Some officers admired the humans, even envied their adaptability. Others, like Krilvac, saw them as a destabilizing force, a threat to the order that had kept the Alliance together for centuries. And the more victories the humans claimed, the louder those murmurs grew. The Zalor have already requested to observe human training exercises, Krilvac said, his tone bordering on disgust. And the Tresk have openly suggested we adopt more human-like strategies in the next offensive. They're starting to forget why we're in command. Sonara's eyes flickered with irritation. The Zalor and the Tresk are too short-sighted. They see a few victories and assume the humans hold all the answers. But we can't afford to let that sentiment spread. We can't stop it either, Krilvac countered. The more victories they claim, the more sway they'll hold over the other species. And if they continue to fight like this, we'll have no choice but to follow their lead. Sonara's expression hardened. No. We'll maintain control. We'll allow them to operate as they have, but within limits. Let them win their battles, but never forget, we are the ones orchestrating this war. Krilvac nodded slowly, though his unease was still evident. And if they start to overreach? Sonara's voice dropped, cold and firm. Then we remind them of their place. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet was thick with tension, each of them lost in thought. Sonara knew that the situation was precarious. The humans had proven their worth, but their unpredictable nature made them a volatile ally. And the Alliance was already showing signs of strain under their influence. It was a delicate balance, one misstep, and the entire war effort could unravel. Finally, Krilvac spoke, his voice low but resolute. We'll keep watch. But the moment they become more of a threat than an asset, we cut them loose. Sonara nodded, her expression unreadable. Agreed. For now, we use their strengths. But we prepare for the possibility that they may become a liability. As Krilvac turned to leave, Sonara's gaze drifted back to the stars outside. The humans had changed the course of the war, but at what cost? The answer remained unclear, but one thing was certain, the balance of power within the Alliance was shifting, and she would need to act swiftly to ensure it didn't tip out of her control. The Dominion Command Center hummed with energy, its dark metallic walls reflecting the cold efficiency of the warriors within. Around the central holotable, the highest-ranking officers stood, faces drawn and eyes burning with a quiet intensity. The losses from the last engagement were staggering, but no one dared speak of defeat. Defeat was not a word the Dominion knew. Commander Vrel, tall and imposing, scanned the damage reports with a steely gaze, his hands clasped behind his back. He stood unmoved by the carnage detailed on the displays. Losses were to be expected. The only thing that mattered now was how they would strike back. Status? Vrel's voice cut through the tense air like a blade. His second-in-command stepped forward, a slight bow acknowledging the authority in the room. We've accounted for all battalions. Casualties are higher than expected, but we remain operational. The humans caught us off guard with their guerrilla tactics, exploiting weaknesses we didn't anticipate. Vrel's eyes narrowed at the mention of humans. They've had their moment of luck. But they will not find us unprepared again. The officers nodded in agreement. The Dominion's strength wasn't in avoiding losses, it was in adapting, in overcoming even the most surprising of setbacks with brutal precision. New technologies are ready. Another officer interjected, turning the attention to a hologram of unfamiliar weaponry. Sleek, deadly, and unlike anything the Alliance had faced before. We've developed countermeasures for their stealth capabilities and their rapid mobility tactics. Vrel stepped closer to the display, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar designs. Show me. The hologram shifted, displaying a series of schematics, disruption fields, sensor arrays, and heavy artillery, all designed with one purpose: to dismantle the human's advantage. Vrel's lips curled into a rare smile. Excellent. Their invisibility will mean nothing when we can track them before they even move. And the Alliance won't expect us to strike so soon. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. The Dominion had never been one to rest on its laurels after a defeat. They evolved quickly, adapting to every threat with ruthless efficiency. Their response would be swift and calculated. Vrel raised his chin, addressing the gathered officers. We've analyzed the humans' tactics. They rely on their ability to disappear, to strike from the shadows. They believe it gives them an edge, but we will turn it against them. We will flush them out, expose their weaknesses, and crush them. This time, they will not escape. His voice hardened, filling the room with the weight of his command. We are the Dominion. We do not cower in the face of adversity. We conquer it. The humans have dared to stand against us, and now they will learn the price of that defiance. The officers around him stood taller, their resolve strengthened by the commander's words. Each one of them had been part of countless campaigns, had seen worlds burn under the Dominion's might. The humans were no different, just another species to be broken, their resistance shattered under the heel of Dominion's supremacy. Vrel gestured to the display, highlighting key positions on the holomap. We strike at their supply lines, cut off their reinforcements, and isolate their units. We use the new technology to overwhelm them, to show them that their so-called advantages are meaningless. We'll use their own unpredictability against them. The room buzzed with renewed energy as officers began exchanging tactical suggestions, refining the plan with the precision the Dominion was known for. Every angle was considered, every possibility calculated. The counterattack would be devastating, a show of force that would leave no question as to who ruled this war. Vrel's gaze drifted over his officers, noting their determination. They were ready. And so were their soldiers. Outside, the preparation had already begun. Engineers were loading the new weaponry onto dropships, soldiers were undergoing final drills, and the fleet was being rearmed for the next engagement. The Dominion war machine moved like clockwork, every part in perfect unison, every piece contributing to the whole. As Vrel walked through the corridors of the command center, he saw it all in motion. Tanks, retooled for the new offensive, rumbled toward their designated launch points. Elite squads ran through final simulations, practicing the new tactics they would deploy on the field. The air was thick with purpose. There was no doubt in anyone's mind, this counterattack would be decisive. They had been momentarily set back, but the Dominion had always known how to turn setbacks into victories. Inside the armory, weapons were checked, rechecked, and loaded with lethal precision. Soldiers, clad in the black and crimson armor of the Dominion, stood in formation, awaiting their deployment orders. Their faces were blank, focused solely on the mission ahead. Each of them had been conditioned for war, trained to follow orders without hesitation, to execute the will of the Dominion without question. Vrel paused in front of a battalion, his eyes scanning the rows of soldiers. "You have all seen the reports," he said, his voice carrying over the clank of armor and the hum of machines. "You know what we face. The humans think they can win by striking from the shadows, by catching us off guard. But we are ready. We have adapted. And now, we will show them what true power looks like." The soldiers responded in unison, a thunderous sound that echoed through the armory. Their resolve was unshakable, their purpose clear. They would follow Vrel's orders without question, and they would execute them with ruthless efficiency. As the preparations neared completion, Vrel returned to the command center. The plan was solid, every detail accounted for. The fleet was in position, the soldiers were ready, and the new technology would give them the edge they needed. There was nothing left but to begin. "Commander," one of the officers called. "All units report ready. We are prepared to launch on your command." Vrel stood tall, his gaze cold and determined. "Then we launch. No mercy. No hesitation. We strike hard, and we don't stop until the humans and their allies are crushed beneath us." The Dominion fleet moved into formation, the ships sleek and deadly, their engines roaring to life as they powered up for the assault. Soldiers loaded into drop pods, weapons primed, and orders set. The countdown to launch began, and with it, the weight of impending conflict filled the air. This time, there would be no surprises. The Dominion would strike with the full force of their might, and they would remind the galaxy why they were feared. The humans had their moment, but now, the Dominion would reclaim control. Vrel watched the display as the countdown reached 0, a grim smile tugging at his lips. "Begin the assault." The quiet hum of machinery filled the human staging area, a stark contrast to the organized chaos unfolding within the alien command centers. In the dim light of the human barracks, soldiers moved with purpose, their faces calm, focused. Each motion, from the final check of weapons to the adjustment of armor, was practiced, deliberate. For them, preparation wasn't just routine, it was second nature. The weight of the upcoming battle did not bring anxiety. It sharpened their resolve. In the corner of the room, the Reaper's squad exchanged quick glances, their eyes hard but clear. No words were needed to understand what was at stake. They'd been here before, standing on the edge of conflict, staring down impossible odds. Each soldier went through their own final checks, methodically loading magazines, testing the feel of their rifles, tightening the straps of their gear. In every movement was the quiet confidence of those who had faced the worst and survived. One soldier broke the silence with a low chuckle, leaning against the table as he glanced at his squadmates. "You know," he began, "this reminds me of that time on Azek Prime. When the Dominion sent that entire armada after us and couldn't figure out how we kept slipping past them." Another grinned, shaking his head. "Yeah, except this time we're going straight at them. No slipping past, just breaking through." The first soldier gave a half smile. "Just the way I like it." Nearby, the Reaper remained silent, his eyes focused on the hollow map in front of him. The strategy was set. They knew their roles, their targets. It wasn't about overwhelming the enemy. It was about precision, about hitting the right points at the right moments. That's what the humans did best, turning chaos into an advantage, making every move count. The Reaper's cold gaze swept over his squad, a slight nod the only signal they needed. They were ready. In the alien command center, the atmosphere was starkly different. Sinara stood by the large holographic display, her brow furrowed as she studied the final deployment plans. Around her, officers murmured quietly, exchanging uneasy glances. The weight of the human threat pressed heavily on them all. They had seen what humanity could do, how unpredictable their tactics were, how effective their guerrilla warfare had been in the last engagement. The anticipation of what was to come gnawed at the edges of their confidence. Krilvac, standing nearby, broke the silence with a frustrated sigh. "I don't like this," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "We've never faced an enemy like them. They don't fight like anyone else. They don't think like anyone else. It's disorienting." Sinara didn't look up from the display, her eyes scanning the battlefield projections. "Which is why we have to be precise. We can't afford to make the same mistakes. We've learned from them. Now we adapt." Another officer, fidgeting slightly, stepped forward. "But how can we be sure? Every time we think we understand their tactics, they change. Every time we believe we've predicted their moves, they surprise us. It's unsettling." Sinara's gaze finally lifted, her eyes cold and unyielding. "Unsettling or not, we have no choice. We have to face them. We've prepared. We've made the necessary adjustments. The humans may be unpredictable, but we are not unprepared. Krovak's eyes flickered with uncertainty. It's not just about preparation, though, is it? It's about understanding their mindset. And that's something we still struggle with. Sinara didn't respond immediately, her thoughts already turning to the battle ahead. She knew Krovak wasn't wrong. The human mindset was a puzzle that the Alliance had yet to fully solve. But they couldn't afford to hesitate. Not now. Not when the stakes were this high. Outside the alien command center, soldiers moved with hurried efficiency, their movements tinged with the same nervous energy that filled the air inside. Equipment was checked, rechecked, and then checked again. Orders were repeated, tensions simmering beneath the surface. There was an underlying current of anxiety that no amount of preparation could fully quell. They had seen what humans could do, had witnessed their brutality firsthand. And now, they would face it again. Inside, Sinara moved away from the holodisplay, her hands clasped behind her back as she addressed her officers. This is the moment we've been preparing for. The humans have proven themselves formidable, yes, but we are not weak. We are not cowards. We are the Alliance. And we will not be defeated by them. Her words were strong, filled with the conviction of a leader who knew the importance of projecting confidence, even in the face of doubt. The officers around her nodded, some more assured than others, but all resolved to carry out their duties. Failure was not an option. It never had been. As the final moments of preparation ticked by, both sides, the humans and the alien forces, stood on the precipice of a battle that would define the course of the war. On one side, the humans, calm and methodical, their confidence rooted in their experience and their ability to adapt. On the other, the aliens, meticulous and anxious, driven by the need to prove that they could match the human threat. The calm before the storm lingered in the air, thick and heavy. The final countdown began. For a brief moment, everything seemed to pause, the last quiet breath before the inevitable roar of battle. Both sides were ready. Both sides were committed. What came next would be decided by strategy, by strength, and by the unpredictable nature of war itself. As the moment drew closer, the anticipation grew unbearable. Each soldier, human and alien alike, felt the weight of what was about to unfold. The war had brought them to this point, a collision of forces, a test of wills. And now, with everything in place, the only thing left was to see who would emerge from the storm. The conflict loomed, vast and unstoppable, its scale unimaginable. Every preparation, every decision, every strategy would soon be tested. The time for doubt had passed. Now, it was all about action.